The night it all began, I never believed in superstitions. The old tales about haunted houses, cursed objects, or strange knocks in the middle of the night always felt like something people made up to scare kids. I was a logic over fear kind of person, till that night. The night that would change my life forever. It was late past midnight, kind of quiet, where even the wind seems afraid to move. I was alone in my small apartment, a book in my hands, a mug of lukewarm coffee beside me. The room was dimly lit, and the orange glow of the street lamp outside spilled through my window, casting long shadows across the floor. It was just another boring Friday night, or so I thought. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. There was a faint tap against the glass. Not loud, not aggressive, just enough to make me look up. I thought it was probably a branch brushing against the window, but when I checked, the trees outside were still, completely still. I brushed it off, went back to my book, and told myself it was nothing. But then came the second sound, this time from the hallway. A slow, deliberate creak, like someone stepping on the wooden floor just beyond my apartment door. My first instinct was to freeze. My mind tried to reason with me. It's just the neighbor. Old buildings make noises. But deep down, my chest tightened with an unease I couldn't explain. I set my book down and held my breath, listening. Silence. Then another creak, closer. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I walked toward the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached it, I pressed my ear against the cold wood. Nothing, not even a whisper of movement. And then 3 slow knocks. Knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. Knock. They weren't loud, but they carried something I can't describe. It wasn't the sound itself, it was the way they felt. Almost patient. Like whoever or whatever was out there wasn't in a hurry. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. My mind was racing. Who would be knocking at this hour? Why so slow? I thought about calling the police, but it felt ridiculous. What would I say? Hi, there's someone knocking, but not really aggressively. Then I remembered the stories, the ones I always dismissed. About knocks and threes, about not answering after midnight, about how some doors should never be opened. But that was just folklore, right? Another sound came not from the door this time, but from behind it, a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but I swear my name was in there. My name, drawn out in a way that felt wrong. Not friendly. Not familiar. The air felt heavier, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I took a step back from the door, and my hands were trembling, and I hated that they were. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The knocks, the whisper, the creaks, everything. I waited there for what felt like hours, my eyes glued to the door, my mind trying to decide whether to open it or push something heavy against it. In the end, I didn't either. I just stood there. Eventually, I forced myself back to the couch. But sleep was impossible. My eyes kept drifting toward the door, half expecting it to burst open. At some point, I glanced at the clock, 3:03 a.m. That's when I saw it. A shadow. Not outside, not from the hallway, but inside, stretching along the wall, slowly moving. Even though nothing else in the room did, I swear it was reaching for me. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be just another boring Friday night. A knock that wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't move. I couldn't. That shadow on the wall, it wasn't mine. I knew it. My body was frozen, but the dark shape kept stretching across the floor, bending unnaturally as though it had a mind of its own. Every instinct screamed at me to look behind me, but I didn't. Because part of me was terrified of finding out what was there, and the other part was terrified of finding nothing at all. Then it happened again. Knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. Knock. Same slow rhythm as before. Only this time, the sound was in T coming from my front door. It was coming from inside the apartment. My stomach twisted. I knew exactly where it was coming from. The old closet in the corner. A closet I never used. I gripped the edge of the couch like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. My pulse was in my throat, my ears. I could barely breathe, and then the whisper returned. Clearer this time, ... Open it. I shook my head without realizing it. My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. No, the air in the room felt different, thicker, colder. I could see my breath in the dim light, curling in pale clouds that made no sense. It was the middle of summer, and I didn't even have the AC on. ... Please. Hey. The voice urged again, soft but close. Too close. I stood, my knees weak. I told myself to grab my phone to call someone, but I didn't. My legs carried me toward the closet door like I was sleepwalking. Every step felt heavier, like I was wading through invisible water. The shadow on the wall stretched longer, darker. I was reaching toward the closet now, as though it wanted me to follow. I stopped just short of the door. My hand hovered over the brass knob, the metal cold enough to sting my fingers. I whispered to myself, "Don't open it. Don't you dare." Then I heard something that shattered every logical thought in my head. A knock 3 times from the other side of the closet door. And after the 3rd knock, I heard my own voice. Let me out. It wasn't someone imitating me. It was my voice exactly. My tone, my breathing pattern. But I was standing there, frozen, on this side of the door. Nearly tripping over the coffee table. What the hell? My voice spoke again. Calm. I've been in here too long. You know it's time. I shook my head violently. This isn't real. This isn't real. But then the handle started to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. Something inside me broke. I lunged forward and slapped my hand against it, stopping the turn midway. The metal burned ice cold against my skin, like holding dry ice. The whisper returned, louder now, overlapping with my own voice. Open it. Let me out. Open it. I pressed my weight against the door, my heart beating so hard I thought it might burst. I wanted to scream, but my throat was locked up. Then silence. Complete silence. I stayed there, palms against the door, listening. Not even my own breathing seemed real anymore. After what felt like forever, I slowly stepped back. The knob didn't move. The whispers were gone. The shadow had vanished. I thought maybe it was over. That maybe my mind had been playing tricks on me. I even laughed a little short, shaky, nervous. But then, from inside the closet, the knocking returned. 3 times. Only this time, it wasn't patient. It was faster, harder. Knock, knock, knock. And in between the knocks, a voice not mine snarled a single sentence that froze my blood. You're already inside. The whisper behind the wood, you're already inside. Those words sank into me like ice water. Or, for a moment, I couldn't even process them. Inside? What? My apartment? The closet? My own head? I stood there, staring at the old wooden door, as if it might suddenly explain itself. The brass handle looked dull in the low light, but I could swear it had shifted slightly just enough to remind me something was on the other side. My skin prickled. The kind of creeping chill that starts in the back of your neck and crawls down your spine. I whispered to myself, don't talk to it, don't engage. But my own curiosity was my worst enemy. I asked barely above a breath, what do you mean? The voice didn't respond right away. Instead, I heard a faint dragging sound inside the closet, like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. Then soft, almost playful, it whispered, you've been here the whole time. My stomach nodded. I'm right here, I said, glancing around my apartment as if it could hear my movements. You're locked in there? I'm out here. A low chuckle seeped through the wood, quiet but deep enough to vibrate under my palm. Are you sure? I stepped back, my heart thundering against my ribs. Everything in me screamed to run, to get out of the apartment, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like invisible threads were pulling me toward that door instead. The dragging sound stopped. The air grew still. Then came a whisper so close it felt like it was curling inside my ear. Check the mirror. I don't know why I listened. I turned toward the small standing mirror in the corner. My reflection stared back. Same messy hair, same pale skin, same frightened eyes. But something was off. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but no, the reflection's lips were moving. Mine weren't. It was mouthing words, slowly, repeatedly. Let me out. Dash. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall. My reflection didn't mimic the movement, just stood there in the glass, its lips still forming those 3 words over and over. The voice from the closet matched its rhythm perfectly. Let me out. Let me out. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. I grabbed the mirror and shoved it face down against the wall, desperate to block its view. The knocking came again, louder now, almost frantic. The wood rattled under the force. "Open eye!" The voice roared, and for the first time it didn't sound like me. It was deeper, sharper, layered with something inhuman. My hand shook as I grabbed a chair and jammed it under the closet handle, forcing it shut. My brain was screaming at me to run out the front door, but another part of me, the part I hated, wanted to know what would happen if I stayed. That part won, backed away toward the couch, eyes locked on the closet. My ears rang with the sound of my own pulse. The apartment felt smaller, like the walls were inching inward. Then silence again. No knocking, no dragging, no whispers. The chair sat perfectly still against the door, and then the closet door handle began to turn anyway. The chair didn't move. The handle didn't lift upward. It twisted through the wood itself, as though the material wasn't even there. My stomach lurched. A final whisper came, softer than ever, but carrying something heavier than anything I'd heard before. "Look outside your window." Against every instinct, I turned. The street lamp's glow spilled across the empty road. But standing just beyond the light's reach was a figure, tall, motionless, watching me. Couldn't see its face. But in its shadow, I saw myself standing perfectly still, with a hand on a closet door. That was the moment I realized. Maybe I wasn't the one in my apartment anymore. A choice I couldn't take back. The figure outside didn't move. It just stood there, still as stone, a silhouette carved out of the night. The street lamp's glow stopped just short of touching it, as if even the light refused to get closer. I blinked once, twice, hoping it was just my imagination. But each time my eyes opened, it was still there, watching, and then it tilted its head. A tiny, deliberate motion, but something about it made my skin crawl. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't confusion, it was recognition, like it knew me. My mind screamed, "Don't look away." Some instinct I didn't understand told me that if I did, it would move. Behind me, the closet door gave a single, slow creak. I didn't need to turn around to know the chair had shifted. The voice came again, soft, calm, like it was reassuring me. "Let me out, and I'll make it go away." I swallowed hard. My voice trembled when I spoke. "What is it?" Silence. "What's outside my window?" I asked again, my words sharper now, desperate. The voice chuckled. "That's not outside your window." A chill ran down my spine. I forced myself to glance away from the figure just long enough to check the clock, 3:33 a.m. When I looked back, my stomach dropped.
Ow.
The figure was closer. Not by much, just a few steps, but enough for me to see the faint outline of shoulders, arms, and something in its hand. I backed away from the window, keeping it in my sight. My calves bumped into the couch. The voice from the closet pressed on, urgent now. "Let me out. This is the only chance you have." My brain was split in two. One side screamed to run, to leave the apartment and never look back. The other side, the part that still burned with morbid curiosity, wanted to know what was on the other side of that closet door. I asked the question I didn't want the answer to. What happens if I open it? The voice didn't hesitate. "You go free." "Free from what?" I whispered. It didn't answer. Instead, I heard something new, a faint scratching. Not from the closet, not from the window. From inside my own head, like nails dragging along the inside of my skull. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the sound grew louder, sharper, faster. When I opened them again, my breath caught. The figure outside was gone. I spun toward the closet. The chair had fallen over, the handle twitching like something was testing it. I realized then, if that thing outside wasn't outside, maybe there wasn't an outside at all. Maybe the voice was right. Maybe I'd been in here too long. My hand moved before my mind could stop it. I gripped the handle. The moment my skin touched the cold brass, everything in the apartment went silent. Even my heartbeat felt muted. The air pressed in on me from all sides, heavy and suffocating. I turned the handle. The door swung open an inch, and darkness bled out into the room. Not the absence of light, but a kind of darkness that felt alive. It reached for me, curling around my fingers, pulling. Inside the gap, I saw movement, shadowed figure standing just a few feet away. I couldn't make out its face, but I recognized its stance instantly. It was me. My voice calm, steady spoke from inside the closet. Took you long enough. Before I could react, it grabbed my wrist and yanked. I stumbled forward into the darkness, the room behind me collapsing like a crumpled photograph. The last thing I saw before the door slammed shut was my own face, smiling on the other side. And then I realized I wasn't holding the handle anymore. I was standing in the dark with the sound of slow, deliberate knocking starting up again. At this time, it was coming from where I had just been. When the lights went out, the knocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound, thick, suffocating. The kind of silence that makes you think you've gone deaf. My ears strained for anything, a breath, a creak, a whisper, but there was nothing. I blinked, but my eyes saw only black. This wasn't the kind of darkness you get when the lights go out. This was heavier, clung to my skin like damp cloth, pressing in from all sides. I stumbled forward, reaching for something, anything to hold on to. My hands found nothing but cold air. No walls, no floor I could truly feel. It was like walking in a space that wasn't finished being built yet. Then, a sound, faint, distant, footsteps, but they weren't mine. I froze, my pulse hammering in my throat. The steps grew louder, closer, circling me. I spun toward the sound, but in this darkness, turning didn't matter. There was no direction here. "Hello," I called, my voice trembling. No answer. Then a flicker of light appeared far ahead. Not a bright light, but a dim, sickly yellow glow, like the kind from a dying bulb. It swayed slightly, as if someone was carrying it. I walked toward it, slow and cautious. The footsteps followed. When I got closer, I saw it wasn't a bulb at all. It was a doorway. And through the doorway was my apartment. I froze at the threshold. The room looked exactly as I'd left it: the couch, the coffee table, the fallen chair by the closet. But sitting on the couch, with their back to me, was me. They sat perfectly still, staring at the front door. I took a step forward, my heart slamming against my ribs. The lights in the apartment flickered once, and then died completely. Pitch black again, but I wasn't alone. Something was breathing in the dark, slow, deliberate. Each inhale scraped against my nerves. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice cracking. A whisper answered from inches behind my ear. "You are." I spun around, but there was nothing. Just more black. The breathing moved, now in front of me, now to my left, now behind me again. It was circling, like a predator deciding where to strike. Then, without warning, the lights in the apartment flickered back on. I was no longer standing outside the doorway. I was inside the apartment again. The other me on the couch was gone. The closet door was wide open. My stomach twisted. I took a step toward it, and the lights flickered again, off for less than a second. But enough for me to see something in the dark. A face. My face, but twisted. The skin was pale and stretched, the eyes wide and glassy, the mouth curled into an unnatural grin that showed too many teeth. When the lights came back on, it was gone. I staggered back, my heel catching on the fallen chair. I crashed to the floor. It's when I noticed the sound again, knocking, but it wasn't coming from the closet. It was coming from inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the cold plaster. The knocking followed me, shifting along with my movements, as if whatever was in there was crawling alongside me, just out of sight. Then it whispered through the wall. "You're not supposed to be here." My breath caught. "Where am I?" I whispered. The voice chuckled. "You'll find out when the lights go out. For good." As if on cue, the bulbs overhead flickered violently. I backed toward the front door, fumbling for the handle. But when the lights went out this time, they didn't come back. And in that perfect, absolute black, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle and pull. Hard, I hit the floor and was dragged backward, nails clawing at the wood. I screamed, but the darkness swallowed the sound whole. The last thing I heard before I was pulled under was the slow, patient rhythm of 3 knocks right next to my ear. The truth I wasn't ready for when I stopped moving. I thought for a moment I was dead. The dragging had been so violent, the fall so sudden, that I expected to wake up, if waking up was even an option. Here in a heap of broken bones? But instead I landed on carpet. I opened my eyes. At least, I think I did. There was light dim, unnatural, but the air was thick, making everything look as though I was seeing it through murky water. I was in a hallway, long, endless. The kind you find in old hotels' faded floral wallpaper, dim sconces on the walls. A carpet that swallowed your footsteps, but there were no doors. It's just a hallway that stretched forward and backward into infinity. I turned, half expecting to see the way I'd been dragged from, but there was nothing. No beginning, no end. Then I heard them. Footsteps. They weren't behind me or ahead of me. They were everywhere. They echoed as though the walls themselves were walking. I began moving because standing still felt worse. My feet made no sound on the carpet, but the footsteps followed anyway, perfectly in sync with mine. After what felt like minutes or hours, I couldn't tell something appeared ahead, a door. Finally, it was tall and narrow, painted black with no handle. Instead, there was a single brass knocker. My chest tightened at the sight of it. 3 knocks had brought me here. 3 knocks had followed me. And now, here was a door waiting to be knocked on. I don't know why I did it, but my hand lifted before I could stop it. Knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound didn't echo. It was swallowed instantly. Then the door opened inward, just a crack, enough for me to see what was inside. It was my apartment, but not the one I'd left behind. This one was wrong. Everything was in the same place, the couch, the table, the lamp, but the colors were muted, almost gray. The air looked heavy, the way it does before a thunderstorm, and on the couch sat me, not the me I'd seen before, not the smiling, twisted version. This one looked tired, pale, almost transparent. I stepped inside without meaning to. The air was colder here, and the moment my foot crossed the threshold, the door behind me slammed shut. The other me looked up slowly. Its eyes were mine, but darker somehow, as if the pupils had swallowed all the light. "You shouldn't have come," it said. "I didn't have a choice," I replied. My voice cracked. "What is this place?" It tilted its head, studying me like I was an insect in a jar. "This is where you've always been." My stomach turned. "No, I was in my apartment." You were never there," it interrupted, its voice flat but certain. "That was me. You've been here since the night you heard the first knock." I shook my head violently. "That's not possible." "Look," it said, pointing toward the window. I turned. Through the glass, saw my real apartment, bright, alive. The street outside full of people walking past, completely unaware. And sitting inside at my couch, drinking coffee, was me. Perfectly normal. Laughing at something on my phone. I stepped closer to the glass. That's me now," the other version said. "And you're the one in the walls. It's the one they knocked to." I whispered. It didn't answer. Instead, it smiled faintly. "They'll come for you again. And when they do, you'll do what I did. You'll find someone to take your place." The air grew colder. I felt movement behind Mieslo, deliberate. A shadow stretching across the gray carpet, curling toward my feet. "They're here," the other me said, its voice almost gentle. "Time to choose." "Choose what?" I asked, stepping back toward the window. It stood, moving toward me. Its eyes were locked on mine. "Whether you open the door or knock on theirs." The shadow behind me touched my ankle, and I felt the same cold pull from before. My breath came in shallow bursts. The other me stopped inches away, leaning close enough that I could feel its breath. "Either way," it whispered, "you don't leave." The lights in the room flickered, and then they went out. Why, I can never go back. The lights didn't come back. I stood in the cold, suffocating dark, my breath ragged, my heart hammering. Something was still holding my ankle, not pulling this time, just resting there, waiting. The voice spoke again, not a whisper now, but clear and steady. "It's time." I didn't ask what it meant, I knew. The air shifted, and faint light bled in from somewhere ahead. I turned and saw a door standing alone in the darkness. No walls, no floors, just a door, glowing faintly in the black void. Every instinct screamed at me to stay where I was, but my feet moved anyway. The grip on my ankle loosened as if giving permission. When I reached the door, I saw it wasn't glowing at all. It was lit from the other side. Through the small crack beneath it, I could see movement. Shadows. People. My hand hovered over the knob. It wasn't brass this time. It was bone. Smooth, polished, cold. I took a deep breath and turned it. The door swung open, and there I was, standing in my apartment, wearing my clothes, smiling at someone who had just walked in, someone I knew. A friend. They laughed together, casual, unaware. My copy moved toward them, offering a drink. I stepped forward, but the moment my foot crossed the threshold, the scene froze. My double's head turned slowly, too slowly, until its eyes locked on mine. The smile widened to wide. "You took too long," it said. I tried to speak, but no sound came. My throat felt full of ice. Behind me, the door slammed shut. I turned, expecting to see the void again, but instead there was another hallway, shorter this time. On the other end stood another door, slightly open. Through it, I could hear knocking. 3 slow, patient knocks. I walked toward it, my steps echoing unnaturally. As I got closer, the knocking grew louder, faster, more urgent. A voice called from the other side. "Let me out," was my voice. Froze. The realization hit me with the force of a blade. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one inside. I was the knock. And now, if I wanted to leave, I'd have to find someone else to open the door. My hand rested on the knob, and a strange calm washed over me. Somewhere far away, I heard laughter. Footsteps. Life continuing without me. But in here, I had all the time in the world. I smiled, and I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. And that is why I can never go back. The door has been shut, and the knock has been passed on. But maybe, just maybe, you've heard it before. Late at night, slow, patient, waiting for you to answer. If this story sent shivers down your spine, make sure you like this video. Subscribe for more chilling tales, and hit the bell icon so you're the first to hear the next knock. Share this with a friend, especially the one who always answers late night calls. And remember, if you hear 3 knocks, don't open the door.